It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, the Detroit Lions have accomplished a significant milestone in the 2023 season by defeating the Minnesota Vikings 30-24 in Minneapolis to clinch their first NFC North title. This is the Lions' first division title in 30 years and guarantees that the Lions will host a playoff game at Ford Field for the first time. Now the mission is a trip to Dallas in Week 17 to take on the Cowboys for what will give the winner a huge advantage towards clinching the second seed in the NFC and thus guaranteeing a second-round home playoff game for the winner. We'll discuss the division clinching win, talk about what it will take to beat the Cowboys, and what the implications are moving towards the end of the season. Now here is your Sports Peninsula team. And this is a special edition of the Sports Peninsula podcast, an NFC North Division Championship version of it. And my name is Dave Drzezinski Drew, and I'm with Coach Andy Shield, the Marine City Mariners. And Coach, we were sophomores at Western Michigan University in 1993. We're aging ourselves a bit, but that was 30 years ago when the Lions won the NFC Central Division. Here we are, NFC North champions of 2023. Coach, how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean, not even quite 20 years old the last time this happened. And there wasn't such thing as the NFC North then either. It was the NFC Central. So for the first time ever, we're NFC North champions, and it's a great thing. It's definitely an accomplishment that we've not seen, and the time is already defined, 30 years. But I think the sights are a little bit further down the road. I think winning that playoff game is really going to be that thing that really is like, okay, things are truly different. But congratulations to every single person involved with this organization and this team. You are NFC North champions, and congratulations to the fans and to those that listen. It's all part of ours, and as well, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, we were pretty blessed. We got to, in the 90s, seeing Barry Sanders play, and he was huge part of that. Although, ironically, that was the one season that Barry actually got hurt and missed the last 5 games of that season. And Derek Moore and Eric Lynch stepped up and helped along and helped the cause out for them to beat Green Bay in that last game in Detroit to clinch the division, earning them the right to host the Packers again the next week in the wild card. And we know how that ended up. So, let's hope that's where the comparisons stop. This is a different team, though, Coach. I know you know that, and I know a lot of the viewers are getting that feel. It took me a few weeks in the season to finally get rid of the SOL type thing, and I think a lot of people are doing that now. This team is truly built differently, and I thought Bob Wojnarowski wrote a nice article today. I think he summed it up really well, that in the past, this team really was, I wouldn't say bent on, but they really were trying to build around just a core nucleus of superstars or 1 or 2 stars, and this team just built very differently. Not saying there's not stars on this team, because there are, but this is truly a group team effort, and it's just been great to watch. It's been great to talk about it, to be a part of it as a fan, and I know you've been enjoying it too. So when we talk about these Detroit Lions, again, they are the NFC North champions. And I put this picture up here for a reason, Coach, because this is where Coach Campbell in the locker room called out a lot of the guys that have been around a little while that have suffered a bit in Detroit. Like, Graham Glasgow returns. He was a part of that. Kaylor Decker, Jalen Rees-Maben, Frank Ragnow, and Romeo Okwara, a lot of guys. And I don't want to leave anybody out, but I mean, guys like that that were drafted a long time ago, and perhaps by the Quinn regime, during the time when Jim Caldwell was coach, when Matt Patricia was coach. Here they are, they're champions now. And you could see the emotions, Coach, certainly from Taylor Decker of all guys. He's been there the longest. And just talk about how those guys had to have felt going through adversity and a lot of rough road. And now they can say they're NFC North champions.
Well, because this has been so long, that this is truly a big accomplishment for this group. And yeah, I mean, a lot of, guys with the Packers and the Vikings, and, I don't know if there's anybody on the Bears most recently that when they've won the NFC North the last time, a lot of players are, get to feel that feeling of clinching a playoff berth early and having home field for at least the first round and having a home playoff game kind of signifies that you're a good team. And, these kids have never felt that. And, ultimately in the end, this is not the type of thing that we want to feel like, this is the mountaintop or anything, because it's not. This is not the mountaintop. This is not at all. And this is a certain level up the hill, and it's great and all, and we all deserve to rejoice in it a little bit here. But let's talk about the postseason now, because it's clinched and locked up, and that's what's probably the best thing about winning the North. A few weeks early here is, we can kind of, polish our seed, so to speak, of where we're going to be and control even, more destiny if we can.
Yeah, that's a great point, Coach. And what we know, and we'll get deeper into this after we talk about the Viking game. We know the Lions will be the third seed, no matter what. We know they have a heck of a shot at getting the second seed, pending they win out, and at the very least win this Saturday coming up against the Dallas Cowboys, which we'll talk about that as well. To get to number one, it's still an option. They need the Niners to lose a game and they can win out. Easier said than done, I get it, but there is a shot at it. It's within reach. But I think it's realistic to think that, and we said this in the intro, the winner of this next game against Dallas is definitely, if it's Detroit, they're definitely in the driver's seat for the second seed. If it's Dallas, they keep their hopes alive for an NFC East title and possibly that second seed as well, and maybe even first seed. There's a lot to be figured out in the next week or two, and we'll know more after this weekend's games, of course. But let's talk about this Vikings effort here. And Coach, we're going to start with the defense this time, because they made the plays they needed to make when they had to. At times they were stifling. At times they would get, I wouldn't say gash, but Minnesota got theirs. But at the end of the day, they were able to make plays. And Coach, let's talk about this rushing defense. The Vikings had 17 rushing yards as a team. That made this team one-dimensional real quick in a bad way. And I don't care what team you are, you don't want to be one-dimensional. Talk about that performance, Coach, and how they were able to shut down the Vikings running game.
Well, and it tells you, there's two things, right off the get-go. They didn't run the football very well at all. I mean, they ran next to 0 yards for 17 yards. And we had the ball 38 minutes, 22 seconds for the game. I think it was 38-22 to their 21-38. And we won by 6. Tells you we didn't play that great. Tells you that we didn't play that great, that we spit and sputtered at times. We spit and sputtered a few times, on offense, and had some, drives get kind of killed, at times. And we gave probably a few too many big third downs on defense as well through the air, because we cannot rush the passer. This is really becoming, I think, when it's all said and done, with some of the defensive backs that we're getting back and whatnot, is going to be probably, the real soft spot in the underbelly is our inability to rush the passer. It just continues to haunt the Lions week in, week out. We can, generate some hurries and those kinds of things, but, far too often the quarterback is not under duress at all and is able to convert on third downs, because, you can only cover so long before one of these windows just is open. And, that is going to have to be something that we address. But yes, all in all, they scored less than we did, and we won the game, and superior rush defense, as well as 4 interceptions, really is the name of the game.
They were able to force turnovers. Yeah, they had the 4 interceptions, like you said, 4 sacks. Now, yet and again, they do have an inability to rush the quarterback, and those sacks were
Really a generate, but the defensive backs have a lot to do with those because a lot of more defensive backs making those sacks too.
Yep, exactly. And now at the same time, I understand, and I'm sure you do as well. They're not generating a pass rush just by bringing the front four, and they haven't been all year. They've had to blitz, they've had to sell out blitz at times in order to make plays, hence getting gashed for 411 yards. Although, like I said, I hesitate to use the word gash because at the end of the day, they did make plays when they needed to. But it certainly was a lot of almost, I wouldn't call it bend but don't break either. It was feast or famine. They either got to Mullins and knocked him down and harassed him, or he was able to sidestep the rush and make a play. And that's easier to do when you've got a Justin Jefferson on your team. He definitely got his 140 plus yards of receiving and a touchdown. KJ Osborne had 95 yards and a score as well. TJ Hawkinson did go out of that game, and unfortunately with a pretty significant knee injury. You never like to see that happen. But again, this is a tough road game against a very aggressive, tough defense in Minnesota. And I agree with you. The defense didn't play great, but they were able to come up with some big plays and force some turnovers, which is certainly encouraging. It would definitely their season going forward is going to be dictated by whether or not the Lions are able to consistently rush the opposition's quarterback. And it's only going to get more difficult with each passing week, including this coming Saturday with Dak Prescott and company in Dallas. But overall, love the rush defense. Love the fact that they were able to force turnovers. Love the fact that they almost doubled the time of possession. All good things for the Lions. And like to your point, though, it's still only amounted to a 6-point win, but that's all it took, coach. And they were able to take the NFC North as a result. Tough road win. They're 11-4 now, and they're going to be going to Dallas, like I said, on Saturday. Let's jump to that offense, though. And once again, here we are, Jared Goff. Extremely efficient, 30 of 40. Not sure we would like to see him throwing 40 times a game all the time, but they took what they were given. 257 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, no turnovers, and a QBR rating of 99.7. Jared Goff, once again, rock solid. And when he needed to play to be made, he was able to step up and do it. Talk about his performance, coach.
Well, and they have an elite run defense, the Minnesota Vikings, and we ran the football, effectively. I know we'll be getting to that, here in short order. 30 of 40, I mean, that's tremendous efficiency. He was very Jared Goff, Detroit Lions-like, very workman-like. We converted on third downs through the air. We threw a lot on 1st and 10 and got, either converted, another first down or got things into a 3rd and short, or a 2nd and short, I'm sorry. We're doing a lot of things just that Jared Goff does week in, week out. He didn't really look like we had any issues. The only things that we had a couple of drive stops through some penalties. We had some delay of games, which, may not necessarily be on Jared Goff. One likes to point the finger that we're not getting going fast enough. Well, that's not necessarily his fault. That could be, personnel groups not being formed and kind of being discussed too long over the headsets. And, Coach Johnson and staff needing to maybe be a little bit more urgent or a little bit more organized with that communication. Could it also be that Jared Goff is just processing things a little too late? Possibly. Those are things that need to tighten up because those are things that are going to really go into effect when you play in a hostile environment on the road. Yeah. And we were very much in that situation. Skol was alive and well last Christmas Eve over in the Twin Cities. And they were, Valhalla was howling at us. And, that's not going to be too different when we go down to AT&T in Arlington, Texas, either when we go out in front of America's team and those Cowboy fans let us know that they're there. So, I mean, those are the things that I think that, if Jared Goff struggled with, he did incidentally a couple of times, may not really have been on him at all. Super efficient day. We're going to win when Jared Goff plays the way he did on Sunday.
Yep, refreshing to see, and definitely needed it on the road like that. And to your point, Coach, a couple gaffes there, but at the end of the day, they were able to work through it pretty effectively, and it was pretty loud there. That may have been the loudest road game they've played, at least from my untrained ear, from what I heard on TV. But definitely a loud, hostile environment. It was a very important game for both teams. So big win and great performance by Jared Goff. You touched on the run game, Coach. Let's talk about it. Let's lead off with Jahmyr Gibbs, because he was the catalyst. 15 carries, 80 yards, and a couple scores. 4 catches and 20 yards, another 100 yards from scrimmage. I mean, what more can we say about Jahmyr Gibbs? This guy is getting better and better every game, Coach. He's tough to tackle. There's times it looks like he's been shot out of a cannon as quickly as he hits the hole. He never seems to go down with the first hit. I talk about Jahmyr Gibbs.
He's able to set up, like a jump cut so well. I mean, he's able to truly get his feet working one way and gather a tackler, bait a tackler to come in, and he will jump cut and have an angle out of nowhere. And it's uncanny. I mean, it's his signature move. And hey, 100 yards on the nose, all purpose between the rushing and the receiving. And those 2 important scores. Man, are we lucky to have this kid. Man, did we have some foresight in drafting him. Man, does he appear to be an upgrade over DeAndre Swift, who in his own right is a fine football player.
Yeah, exactly. Great point.
Just he is the ultimate replacement for what we could have had that we needed to improve upon last year.
Yep, can't agree with you more, Coach. And then let's talk about David Montgomery. He carried for 17 rushes for 55 yards. He had a touchdown as well, a couple catches for 14 yards. They just complement each other so well. They're both absolutely on pace to get 1,000 yards. It's almost in the bag for Montgomery, barring injury. Gibbs is very close. Talk about David Montgomery, what he's meant to this team, and how he played on Saturday.
Between the two, 135 yards rushing. Between the two, 135 yards and 3 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. So this is against an outstanding rush defense that Minnesota Vikings have. They are very good against the run. And, we 135 and a TD. I want to say that was 32 carries, 135 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Awesome.
That's pretty effective, efficient, and productive across the board. Working running defense or rushing offense against an excellent rushing defense. So, I mean, that's, I don't think it's any secret as to what we're going to be doing when we go into Arlington. We're going to try to run the football on that team. And guess what? They don't do a very good job of stopping it either. They're great against the pass, but not so hot against the run.
And you got to love it. And that sets Detroit up nicely with a dominant offensive line. And Detroit has a dominant offensive line and 2 running backs that would start for pretty much every team in the league. Detroit's got a heck of a shot here of definitely controlling the tempo of that game and certainly doing what they want to do offensively against Dallas's strength, which is their defense. They're, like, to your point, they are very tough against the pass. They have a tremendous pass rush. Lots to handle there. They got the right 2 guys in the backfield to do that, Coach, and I agree with you. Let's go on, move to the receiving core. And once again, Amon-Ra St. Brown, just 12 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, this guy is close to automatic. Yeah, he's back in business. He's other than the Bears game, he's been pretty much automatic this year and just such a clutch player, Coach. I mean, in our time, I mean, Calvin Johnson's the most physically gifted and statistically best receiver the Lions have had, but St. Brown just is so consistent and so good. He doesn't do it in a spectacular fashion, and it's not like he's a physical freak. I mean, he's just a very, very good football player and works his ass off. Talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I mean, you said it very, very well there, Drew. Just an exceptional specimen and just a machine with his workmanlike approach and his ability to generate production is just very, very workmanlike, machine like, mechanical almost. And yeah, he was knocked off his tracks a little bit a couple of times. Chicago, he's been nursing a rough foot really for more than 2 years now. The guy was absolutely on. They didn't account for him in their scheme, and he wound up being that extra rush. He looked, okay, well, we ran the ball 32 times. We didn't run it 40 times. It's not like we gave it 20 times each to Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. We couldn't do that. That would have been just eaten alive. So we needed to be able to attack through the air a little bit and coming underneath so often, finding soft spots and, open windows and soft spots and zones. Amon-Ra was there time after time after time after time to the tune of 12 receptions. When he's working like this and in the double digits, we're at least winning or very, very close to winning.
Yeah, exactly, Coach. And another thing I want to credit certainly the offense for, specifically the offensive line. Jared Goff was only sacked one time. And now you've got, Danielle Hunter with 15 and a half sacks coming into that game. They're a very difficult team against the pass, and they're very tough against opposing quarterbacks. They're a very aggressive defense coached by Brian Flores, and they were able to make it happen. So yeah, I agree. They would not allow the Vikings to dictate what they were going to do from their defensive side. They were going to dictate what they were going to do on the offensive side, and it certainly paid off. Jameson Williams, I think this is the most catches he's had in a game. 5 catches now, 43 yards. He's getting better and better. We're still waiting for those breakout performances, right? And we've seen spectacular catches from him and touchdowns, but getting better and better every week, Coach. Talk about Jameson Williams.
Yeah, he was utilized best as a possession receiver in this past game, and he came up with a couple of big third down receptions. It was great to see. It's really comforting to see him acclimate and be utilized as just kind of your old garden variety wide receiver on this organization. He's got this brilliant speed and ability to separate and those kinds of things. But he can be that guy that runs comeback routes and makes plays for first downs too. And, proud to see it. Been wanting to see it. Jameson Williams is buying back I would never say he was out of respect here. I think, there's always respect for JMO. I think some trust was starting to slip through the fingers a little bit, with some fans, not all, but some fans. I think that trust is getting bought back a little bit. Which is great to see, because we're going to need to see him make a big play to be a difference maker in a game.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all hands on deck now. I mean, there will not be an easy game on the schedule going forward. They played the Cowboys in Dallas, as we talked about. They come home and face the Vikings again, which the game's certainly going to mean something to the Lions. We pretty much know that it's going to mean something. Even if they lose Saturday, it still could mean something. On Sunday. So that's an important game. It may be a playoff game for the Vikings. Who knows? If they win this weekend, I believe they play the Packers. They're going to have something to be playing for as well. So, it's just big. And yeah, they need everyone. And to see Williams starting to get better and better every week, it just bodes well for them. Let's talk about Sam Laporta. Now, I think the Vikings made a concerted effort to limit him, and they were able to. He caught 3 passes for 18 yards. But again, the Lions have other options, and that game plan, obviously, I mean, while effective against Laporta, wasn't effective in general, and that speaks to the versatility of this offense, Coach. But Sam Laporta, he was solid in the game. Any thoughts on his performance in this one?
Well, I believe, that there's a route combination kind of connection there. And if you want to take away one, you're not going to take away both. And that is between Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. If you're going to keep another player in line and draw in towards the tight end, so your tight end's bracketed, there's going to be a receiver that's going to just get single coverage, and that single coverage is going to break after a while, and he's going to be swapping through another zone in an open window. So I mean, Sam Laporta was that guy on Sunday where his bracket was pretty tight. That's not to say that he didn't still have an effect in this ball game. He certainly did, because we were successful through the air because of Sam Laporta as well, drawing the defense towards him.
Absolutely. Great point. Great point. And to talk about some of the other contributions here, Josh Reynolds had a catch for 16. Khalif Raymond had a couple catches for 29, and Peoples-Jones had a catch for 16.
Big third down reception for DPJ.
Yeah, exactly, Coach. And it does speak to, again, their versatility. But I think it still all comes back to that offensive line. Once again, they were intact. Graham Glasgow is the starting right guard. And Big V's likely not going to be back as a Lion. So he's our guard. You've got Decker and Sewell at the tackle spots. Big Frank's back in the middle. Jonah Jackson, it's been playing pretty steady since he's come back. What a huge difference this line makes, Coach. But again, the offense keeps rolling. Like you said, 135 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, 257 passing yards, and nearly double the time of possession. Overall, Coach, your thoughts on how the Lions took care of business in Minnesota in this one?
Well, I mean, you ran the ball for 135 yards against that defense. Oh, that's awesome. And we controlled the time of possession and didn't turn the football over. You control time of possession, don't turn the football over. Your offense is having an effect. Doesn't necessarily mean you're scoring a ton, but it's definitely having an effect. We scored plenty. I mean, we scored 30 points. That should win you a football game. Yeah. Every time that should win you a football game. But what you like seeing is the game shortened with our offense on the field more than theirs, and being able to run the football with that kind of effect against that defense, not turning the ball over once. That's Lions football, and it makes us very different, very, very difficult and dangerous heading into Arlington this Saturday evening, because we're back red hot again, and we're doing Detroit Lions things, at least these new Lions things.
Yeah.
And we're doing it. Yeah, okay, we did it against Denver and Minnesota. Okay, so what? Those are 2 teams that have been playing very, very well as of late. So, I loved what I saw with the offense.
Agree with you totally. Very pleased with the effort. Love the opening drive, that 7+ minute drive, and yielding and getting into that was huge. Getting a touchdown right off the hop and putting the Vikings down early. That was a huge drive. And certainly we've seen several games this year where the opposition marched downfield and scored quickly against the Lions, and it really threw them off kilter, and certainly hurt them in the Green Bay game, and nearly hurt them in the Chicago game at home, and certainly did on the road. So I'd like to think those efforts are behind them now. We saw a great effort against Denver. We saw a very, very solid effort on defense in some cases, and also on offense, a very, very strong effort. Really looking forward to this team going to Arlington, like you said. Now let's talk about those Dallas Cowboys. And Coach, first thing I noticed right off the hop, this Dallas hasn't lost at home, so they're very tough at home. They are 10-5, so they can be had on the road, which means this game is very important, because when we talk about, now we're talking about football, playoff positioning, looking at who you're going to face. You'd much rather be at home taking on the Cowboys than on the road, but nothing comes easy, and nothing worth having comes easy. The Lions are going to have to go to Arlington to win this game. Now, Coach, let's talk about the Cowboy offense. How does this Lion defense stop this Cowboy offense? Because it is pretty potent.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, it starts with making sure Pollard and company aren't doing their thing. We've got to make sure that that's stopped, and we've got another running mobile quarterback that we want. We want Dak throwing rather than running. We want him using his arm, not his feet. We want to take care of that Dallas Cowboy running game and box it in. We want to be on the field. We want to be running the football. Dallas, if they are weak somewhere, they have a great defense, but their rush defense is not exactly stalwart. And, we need to be on the field more than they are. And, defensively, let's just let's get off the field. Let's just do that by taking care of the run game and making sure Dak is throwing, not running.
Yeah.
They're going to make plays. They'll make some plays.
Yep.
They'll flip some field. They may even have a drive or two and then put it right down our throat, maybe even 3, but no more than that. And they're going to work for their hearts out for their points. And at the very least, a couple of times turn it over on downs.
Yeah, and your points are statistically backed, because when you look at Dallas's team offense and defense, they've allowed 1,735 rushing yards. Now, they've been able to counter that with 1,728 of their own on offense.
Very close.
Yeah, exactly. Here's where they're distinguished. Dak Prescott is, and as a team, they've thrown for 3,700 yards passing. They've only allowed 2760, excuse me. So like you said, their pass defense is very tough. The Lions must establish the run, and the blueprint's there. We saw the Buffalo Bills do it to them a couple weeks ago. And mind you, that was in Buffalo, but nonetheless, Buffalo won that game pretty convincingly. So that's very important. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, that offensive line, if they can set the pace and set the tempo early, that's going to open up things very nicely for Jared Goff. So I would agree with you 100% there, Coach. That's going to help a lot. Yeah, defensively, like you said, you don't want Dak Prescott running. I mean, the Lions don't want any mobile quarterback running. We've said it all year. You can check out our past podcast here on YouTube on our channel, and you've talked about that specifically at length. The Lions they're either not able to scheme it up or they feel they can get there another way. And the Aaron Glenn's answer has been to blitz more aggressively and more often. It's working, but again, it's feast or famine. We saw Nick Mullins threw for 411 yards against the Detroit Lions. That was with just CeeDee Lamb not CeeDee Lamb, but Justin Jefferson and a limited version of TJ Hawkinson. Now you're going against CeeDee Lamb. You've got Robert Woods. You've got Michael Gallup. You've got Ferguson, the tight end. Pollard out of the backfield. That's going to be a handful. So I think it's safe to say the Lions are going to certainly blitz. I think we all thought we might see number 2 back in the lineup last week. I don't know if we're going to see CJ Gardner-Johnson in the lineup this week. We know James Houston has started practicing now. Probably might not even see James Houston until the first round. I don't know.
I wouldn't expect to.
Yeah. But he's certainly going to help the pass rush there, but that won't help on Saturday. If Gardner-Johnson plays, that certainly is going to help. I selfishly, I hope he does. I'm sure you do too. But, obviously, if he's not ready to go, there's no point in rushing him. But this game's so big, Coach. This is huge for both teams. Dallas is a game behind Philly in the standings. Detroit is tied with Philly, but they're, by virtue of a conference record, they're in third seed versus the number 2. So winning this, Dallas needs this game to stay in NFC East contention, let alone the number 2 seed contention. And of course, Dallas, Philly, and Detroit are all right there with San Francisco, who is in command with their conference record. I believe it's 9-1. So everyone needs the Niners to at least lose a game. And if anyone has any aspirations of getting up to number 1, you got to win out and get that help. But Detroit certainly can help themselves by beating Dallas. It's a hostile environment. It's going to be the Monday Night Crew. So old Joe and Troy will be in the booth. JJ Jimmy Johnson's going in the Ring of Honor, which Coach Campbell actually is pretty happy about. He's a fan. He's an admirer of Jimmy Johnson, so he's actually pretty happy about that. And yeah, you know what? The Lions and Lions fans should be happy about it. I don't personally care if Joe Buck and Aikman are doing the game. Certainly, we know it's a national TV game, whatever. But it's fun to say that the Detroit Lions are going to be part of this, and it's really kind of a playoff game. It's not an eliminator because both teams are in, but a huge game for both teams. Coach, I'd really like to get your feel on how you see this game shaking out and maybe a prediction.
Well, I tell you what, I'm, got a couple of days off work here through the holidays, and winter break has its benefits to us in the education field. Never quite got out of Christmas break mode, but watching myself some ESPN in the mornings and some NFL, in the morning, and both of them, man, there's two things for sure, in the NFL with ESPN right now is that Russell, Wilson's, never gonna, he's done and over with, and washed up and chopped liver at that. And boy, Lions are going to roll into Dallas and just dominate. That's the talk. And to the point, that they make, they don't do well what we do, and that's they don't stop the run. They have that defense is vaunted. They can create turnovers left and right, and we have the type of quarterback that can have those type of turnovers created because he would take hits. They do a lot of things off the blind side. They do a lot of things with stunts. They would either force Goff to make an errant throw, which he doesn't rarely make, but when he does, boy, does he do it. And or turn the ball over himself via the fumble. And those types of things can happen. We saw Jahmyr Gibbs with a big fumble in this game. Those are the little things that we need to make sure that we want to secure. But they don't stop the run. Well, I see Dave Montgomery, really being a stalwart in this one. We got to keep converting and doing those things. I think we're going to struggle stopping them a little bit too. I think we will. I think we will have a couple of drives that they just move it right down on us. When it's all said and done, I'm still sticking with the group, Drew. I am not gonna. My fantasy record's poor. I had a little hot streak, with some pick'ems, but that's been a long and gone too. I am gonna go Lions 30, Dallas 27.
I see it similarly, Coach, and I'm gonna stick with the Lions on this one too. Do I think they'll win? Yeah, I think they absolutely can win this game. And I think they'll win. I think they'll win 27-24. I'm very close to what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Although last week I thought it was going to be, we all thought it was going to be we knew it was going to be close. We thought it'd be a low scoring game. Ended up being a little bit more higher scoring than we thought. We were thinking around that 30-point over under mark, and 30-24. Yeah, I think the Lions, if they're able to run, and there's quite frankly nothing indicating that they shouldn't be able to do so, to your point, that just sets up so much. It sets up the play action. It forces Dallas to keep 7 in the box, which means you're in single coverage. Good luck. I don't care how good your corners are. You ain't covering Detroit's receiving core and Sam Laporta with single coverage. Someone's getting open. Someone's getting open on every play. So it's really important to establish that run early and often. Wouldn't surprise me if we saw a similar game plan like we saw a few weeks back against Oakland on the Monday night game, where Detroit ran it again. I think 8 straight plays. I'm sure that was scripted, but they made sure they were going to run that football, and it helped. They didn't light it up offensively, but they won the game 20-13, I believe, against the Raiders. So they got to be able to run that ball. That's going to eat clock. It's going to keep their offense off the field. Because to your point, yeah, I think Detroit's going to struggle against them defensively. I think they'll make plays, and I would hope to see them do the same thing that they did against Minnesota in the sense that they're, when the chips are down, they're going to make a play. They're going to get a sack, or they're going to get a turnover. But yeah, I think they can win this game, but it's going to be a very tough game. The one thing I don't want to see, aside from an injury, is I don't want to see them blown off the field. Can't have that. Cannot have that.
Compete.
Exactly. You got to compete. I can stomach them falling short in this one, as long as the compete is there and we see some good things happening, because there ain't no style points in the NFL, and there certainly won't be any in the playoffs. So very important they play well in this game. And coach, let's talk about the playoffs now. If it ended today, they'd be hosting the Los Angeles Rams, and I think we're familiar with their quarterback. The Rams, the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Packers, those teams are all in play. The NFC South teams, it's possible the Saints or Falcons could get in. Bottom line is no team that makes the playoffs is going to be a team that should be taken lightly by any stretch of the imagination, even with the additional wild card team that was added last year. I mean, it could be the Seahawks, who got beat Detroit in week 2. Could be the Rams, who we certainly know are a very good football team. They're hot. But you know what? The Detroit Lions are pretty good too, and they're hot. So I just think it's just so important to get home field, because with the way the fan base has traveled with this team has been great, but much, much easier to go down to Brush Street than it is to go hop a flight somewhere. And you'll get a few more thousand people here than you will anywhere else. And that will help. I mean, and to your point, you brought up how the Lions struggled a little bit with a couple of delay of game penalties in Minnesota. No such case at Ford Field. It's certainly not for the Lions. For the opposition, it's going to be a struggle. So how important is it for you, Coach, that the Lions absolutely win out this year and at least get that number 2 seed?
Well, I mean, your window's open for only so long, and this group will be this group. You know, that just like last year, we were so excited about how that team was. Look how different this year's team is as compared to last year's team. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, yeah, you want to maximize your opportunity. If we have an opportunity to be the first overall seed and get a bye and get to your point earlier, you know, CJ Gardner-Johnson and James Houston totally locked in and loaded, get Hendon Hooker that much healthier to support Jared Goff if there would ever need to be, something of that situation. Just keeping the offensive line fresher and getting them some more time. You don't want to ever get rusty and complacent, but yeah, let's go for it. You know, we a couple of weeks ago we said 2-2. They need to finish, out. When there was a month left, when there was 4 games left, and we weren't looking so good after we had lost to Chicago. Yeah, we said 2-2. We're 2-2. We're okay. We're we need to be, and if we lose out, we'll be 2-2. So. Is it the end of the world if they lose? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We also are a work in progress and looking to become better and better and better. Does this necessarily mean this is our year and those kinds of things? No, that's not, no one's entitled to that. That being said, it would not feel real good if we got mollywopped and wiped off the TV screen on Saturday night. Tales of the Baltimore game. Mm-hmm. We don't need another Baltimore Ravens type game from a higher end opponent, which would tell us that we are a little ways off. I don't think we're that far off. I think this team can compete. I tell you what, if the more games you have at Ford Field, the better likelihood the Detroit Lions are still alive. You had better be a pretty damn good football team. Yeah. If you're going to come in here and win.
No question.
Let's keep fighting. I don't think, you can do, like maybe we have had teams in the past that were resting players to make the run, in other sports, not in this sport. We are in position to where we could do that. We could do that. I don't think it's in our best interest. I think we should fight for that number 1 overall seed. We only have so much control over it. But if we win, that's as much control as we can take. So let's keep doing that, because I think if we could have that first round off, and we can guarantee that we're playing home playoff games through the NFC portion of the playoffs, better watch out. Better watch out. Do I expect them to be there? No, but I'm rooting for it.
Yeah, I think that's as fair statement as you can make, and I think that as a fan,
not that anyone's rooting against the Lions. I guess maybe if we had locked up the number 1 seed, then I wouldn't really care if we won or not. But we need to try to lock up that seed if we can.
Yeah, it's important. Certainly if you want to make noise in the playoffs. And then obviously the situation will be dictated by the Saturday game against the Cowboys. You win that game, all hands on deck against the Vikings. You fall short in that game, it's going to depend on what happened that this weekend coming up, to depend on whether that game against Minnesota does mean something. It won't affect the Lions seeding. Like I said, they're in third. They cannot fall back to fourth. So that's a safe position to be in. I mean, at least there's a somewhat of a comfort level there. They know the worst case scenario now is third seed, and that's okay. So, but yeah, I agree with you. Let's win out. Let's see what happens. They win out, they're going to be the number 2 seed. We know that. So you do that, and who knows? San Francisco has to travel to Washington this week. Not the best team in Washington, but it's still a road game across the country. It's never easy.
They're banged up.
Yeah,
that's hurting.
Exactly. And then if they win that game, which let's assume they do, they got to come home and then face the Rams, who right now, after Detroit beat Denver, all of a sudden now the Rams are the hottest team in the league. So I no problem. Love being streak killers in Detroit. That's not a problem. We've set other streaks down the street there. We don't want to talk about that on this show, but no problem. Teams are hot. Teams are on fire. Okay, come on into Ford Field. Let's see what happens. Me personally, I have a lot of confidence in this coaching staff, in this team. I think they can. I know they can beat anyone if they play their A game. But they've got to do that. And I've said that probably ad nauseum at times on these shows, but I can't stress it enough. They can compete with anyone as long as they absolutely play their best and don't give up the football. All bets are off. They can lose just as easily if they don't. And I don't know how many teams above them actually can say they can win most games even with their B game. Baltimore might be one of those teams. I'm not convinced any team in the NFC can really say that, though, Coach. Everyone's lost games that they probably should have won. So
for sure,
any given Sunday. So there's no juggernaut, although the Ravens come the closest. There's no question. We saw what they did to Detroit, but we've seen what they've done to other very good football teams this year. And the Baltimore Ravens are scary. But let's hope we get to talk about them again, because that means Detroit's going to Vegas, and that would be a beautiful thing. Let's not put the
one game at a time.
One game at a time. It's good enough to go to Jerry's world and see Jimmy Johnson get it into the Ring of Honor and hopefully send him back with a sad face. And that's how we're seeing it, and that's how we'll roll with it. So, any closing thoughts, Coach, before we wrap this one up?
No, I mean, I think you alluded to some good points there, Drew. I mean, I get intense in these things. None of that's wavering for me. We've not done anything that I haven't seen yet before. So, I mean, I am not necessarily satisfied with just this NFC North title. I want more. I want people around this country and around the football watching world to know and respect and believe in the Detroit Lions the way you and I have for the last 49 plus years. And we're going to lose some. These things are going to happen. People say, "Oh, look at Kansas." Yeah, but look, Kansas City. Look, they may be post Empire. That's why that last Super Bowl was great. They've got a bunch of money hung up on a couple of contracts, and that's going to be a problem for them. these boys, not, Mahomes, but the other ones, I think are 29, 30 or 30 plus years old now. And, the law of diminishing returns is going to start. And, how long is Travis Kelce going to be a Kansas City Chief?
Yeah.
Before it's time to maybe move on and do something, different. This is going to happen. Chris Jones, very likely to happen. Free up those cap dollars. We have an organization in the NFL that is going to be paying out $85 million in cap space for the next couple of years to 0 players.
That would be the Denver Broncos, right?
Yep. And their failed attempts to win. So, we need to keep competitive and keep winning for as long as we can and take as much of the winning as that we can. And when you got to get greedy in football, it's not like hockey or baseball or basketball where a loss here, a loss there, or whatever, even in the playoffs, not a big deal. It's, I expected to lose this one. Well, if you expected to lose this one, you expect the season to be over because you don't get series in the NFL. You got to play to win week to week and win as much as you can and as often as you can. And I just, be greedy, Lions fans, but be supportive in the process. Don't waver just because maybe it doesn't go our way. Be pissed and be angry, but, be greedy, but be loyal at the same time.
I would agree with that. I think that's great. It's like I might criticize my brother, but don't you criticize my brother. That's kind of the attitude we got to have as fans.
There you go.
We'll say what we want about our team, but we're going to still support.
In the end, we're going to support them too. And when it comes time to, we don't get to make those calls anyway. We can call for those calls to be made, but and there'll come time where it's time to walk away from some guys. That will even happen this year. That's going to happen this year, where we, nice player, but maybe we need to move on. Maybe we need an upgrade. We did that critically this year with some players that were not on the radar to do so.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
that's going to happen again too.
We hated to lose Jamal Williams.
We made a change with the kicker in the middle of the year.
Yeah, exactly.
Jamal Williams is a perfect point. We loved him. And I still do. He's still a great piece here. Holds a record. But he's no longer here because we needed to do some upgrading, and that's going to happen too. I think probably most specifically on the defensive end.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot to certainly looking forward to a great end of this season. Looking forward to the playoffs, and certainly looking forward to talking in the offseason about what the next steps are going forward. I agree with you. Brad Holmes is positioning this team to be able to keep the cupboard full and not blow the cap wad on a couple individuals and have basically take your window and shrink it down to 1 or 2 years, much like Denver tried to do, and it didn't work. The Rams did it. Now it worked. They got their ring, but they gave up a hell of a lot to get it. And if you look, and I don't have it right in front of me, I just saw someone post a couple of days ago on online. The Lions, what they end up getting in that trade with all the picks and the subsequent moves they made afterwards, incredible. And a big reason why this team is where it's at and poised to do some really nice things this year. And they've already done so. First step, winning records. Second step, win the division. Third step, host a playoff game. Fourth step, now let's close the season out. Let's win that first round game. You and I got to see that in 91. Actually, it was early 92 to 91 season. That feeling, it was almost euphoric to see a playoff win in the NFL like that, and certainly against a team like Dallas and the way they did it. It was so great, and being able to that hype going into the NFC Championship game, even though it was a tall order against a very good Washington team, and it didn't end the way we wanted it. It was very exciting, and we certainly, as fans, look forward to being able to go through that. And many fans have never seen that here. You're going to hopefully get a chance to see that, and that would be awesome. Thank you, Coach, for your time and in your perspective. I always love talking to you. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the podcast. And don't forget to let us know what you want to hear. And if you have any issues with what we've said, let us know. We want to hear from you. So for Coach Andy Shield, Marine City Mariners, I'm Drew. Take care, everybody. We will talk to you next week. Take care. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and for your support. Remember, when you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.